Good afternoon, and welcome to day 2 of the 2021 MGFA National Conference. My name is Craig Stranger, and I'm the Vice President of Development here at MGFA, and I have the pleasure of introducing our next presenter, Phil Harris. Phil has been a wonderful volunteer for MGFA over the years in many, many aspects, but his forte is in planned giving, and Phil has been instrumental in helping MGFA formulate its planned giving information. Phil has a long and successful career in the financial world. He's currently Vice President of Investments for the Stifel Financial Corporation. And this year, MGFA is going to announce that Phil is going to be our official volunteer liaison for all planned giving. Without further ado, please welcome Phil Harris.
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. One of the reasons that I do participate as a volunteer for MGFA is because I, in fact, have MG myself, generalized. And not only is it rewarding to help out in a professional capacity, but this is also very personal to me. Like many of you out there, you had your lives turned upside down by MG. It kind of comes on unexpectedly, and you go from 4 to 5 days of doing CrossFit to being in the hospital for a month, and then rehab another month, and then prednisone and all the things that come with that. So it's a very personal mission for me to help in any way that I can to help the MGFA find a cure, find the research, fund the research. And in that regard, that is done through planned giving and donations and so forth. So we're going to take a look at several things. First of all, before we get started, I want to introduce my colleague, DJ Mormom. He's a specialist in long-term care planning, also insurance specialist, and also is on my team as part of one of the specialists that I go to as we put together solutions for folks that are planning their estates and also want to take care of their charitable wishes and how they want to leave a legacy, not only to their heirs, but to the causes that they believe in. So let's get started. Let's try to have a little fun with this. I know this is financial information, but we can always make it fun. So what we're going to be looking at on today's agenda is we're going to touch on pooled income funds, charitable remainder trust, appreciated stock gifts, qualified charitable distributions, charitable lead trusts, donor advised funds, private foundations, pledges, scholarships, charitable gift annuities, and qualified conservation easements. But we're really not going to cover all of that. One of the reasons that I put this slide up there is that these are all very effective strategies that you can implement in your estate plan and also implement in any of your charitable giving requests that you're wanting to do. However, I put this slide up there to show that this can be very complex, but at the same time, it can be very simple. We just have to find the right strategy that you're looking for, not only to take care of your heirs, but to take care of the causes that you believe in. So let's take it down a notch. And here's what we're going to be looking at primarily in today's program. Now, bear in mind, we're not going to be answering specific tax questions during this presentation. That is a presentation that would literally take hours to go through, especially with the upcoming tax changes and COVID and so forth. However, if you do have those type of specific questions, please leave them in the question box or contact MGFA directly. We'll have all that contact information at the end of the presentation. Now, let's get started with just some basics. And one of the things that I really want to highlight is that the staff at MGFA has done a terrific job at building a very inclusive and well thought out website. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go to share screen. And now everyone should see the MGFA website. DJ, you seen that over there?
Absolutely, Phil. And I was, as you're going through this, I looked at this over the weekend, and the foundation's done a fantastic job with this next section. So I really like what you guys did here.
Okay, well, great. Because what I want everyone to know is that a lot of questions can be answered just by going to the website itself when it comes to plan giving. So when you get on the MGFA website, which is myasthenia.org, you can see that right here, and then just tab over to Get Involved, and then tab down to Plan Giving. Click that, and you will see how to leave your legacy and so forth. Now, this gives very basic information, but it gives you a great starting point on some of the things that you can do in terms of making a plan gift to MGFA. And it also takes a lot of the legwork out of it. So as you scroll down here just a little bit, you'll see right here, gifts from your will. Now, this is just a standard bequest. And a lot of times, either if you're having an attorney draft your will or you're making your will yourself, you're going to want specific language in order for that bequest and your wishes to be carried out properly. And what we've done here at MGFA is that on the will, if you just click download and the bequest language here, you will see the actual verbiage that you need to include in your will or provide to your legal advisor to include into your will and or a trust. So we've taken that step for you. It's right here. It's right on the website. You're not going to get charged by the hour or anything like that. It just allows you to get in here and start doing some work. Now, whether you want to contribute to MGFA or any charitable organization or anything for that matter, you have to have a will. You must have a will. It is just imperative. As a financial practitioner, I'm going to digress here a little bit. I don't know how many times I've been involved with cases wherein the people that left money to their heirs or want their estate flowed out properly does not have an active or an effective or an updated will in place. You know, they just told, you know, their cousin that, hey, you know, I want to give part of my money to MGFA. They do a good job. But unless it's on paper in the United States of America, it ain't going to happen. So you've got to make sure that you have a sound will in place. And if you have any questions on that, we can certainly help you through MGFA. Now then, let's go to the next. Now, this is a very popular option too. These are beneficiary gifts. Now, if you own an IRA, you have an insurance policy, an annuity, a 403B, those are all accounts that are designated as beneficiary types account. Now, a beneficiary account normally will supersede the will. So if whoever you have listed down on your beneficiary form, when somebody like me receives that and a certified death certificate that you have actually passed, and it says, give all of my money to my ex-spouse, well, guess where it's going? It's going to the ex-spouse. It's not going to MGFA, your children, or anyone else that you want. So those beneficiary forms are very, very important. And we're going to really stress on this on the more advanced strategies that DJ in particular is going to be covering on how we can really make these beneficiary identifiers work to your advantage and work very well within your estate plan. And as you scroll on down, you'll see gifts of stock. Now, we're going to cover this a little more in detail in the presentation as well. But as you look at the appreciated stock, if you decide to do something like that, if you're working with a financial advisor or you're working directly with a mutual fund, say Vanguard or Fidelity or something like that, and you say, I want to give a gift of stock to MGFA. Well, they're going to ask you for certain things. And these things are provided right here in the downloaded portion that you have here. If you scroll down, gifts of stock, it's going to give your advisor the exact address, EIN number, and so forth that he will need or she will need to process that gift request. Now, we're going to get more in detail on that in the presentation, but this is already listed out here, everything you need to know right here on the website. Next, a charitable IRA rollover. Now, these have become very popular over the last few years. If you're over 72 and a half or 70 and a half, and in some cases 72, when you make a required minimum distribution, Uncle Sam's going to want part of his taxes, and he's going to require you to take a minimum distribution. With that minimum distribution, you have the ability to either move that entire distribution or a portion of that distribution directly to a charitable organization. Or if you need the deduction based on how you're working with your tax advisor, you can take that RMD, that required minimum distribution, and then you can sell that and then put that towards your charitable contribution and take the deduction. So we're going to cover that a little more in detail. But again, right here, you download the gift info. It's going to answer some very commonly asked questions, and that will help you and your advisor determine whether or not this is a good fit for you. And then we have gifts of property. Now we're starting to get really complex. And in these type of situations, you're going to want to contact MGFA, Craig Strainer, directly. And he's got a network of volunteers such as myself that will help you determine how that can work. A lot of people have car collections, fine art collections, coin collections, things of that nature. Down here in Texas, where I'm at, we have gun collections. So there's a lot of different things that you can put values on that can be given as a charitable contribution. And then finally, what I want to touch on, if you go right down here to the bottom, where it says for professional advisors, when you click on that, and if you're working with a financial advisor, an insurance specialist, your CPA, your attorney, you can download this form, and it's going to give them 99% of the information that they're going to need to help you formulate your estate plan. So that has all been provided right here on the MGFA website, and that can help you, establish the wishes that you're looking to do. So that being said, I encourage you to take a look at the MGFA website.
Hey, Phil, while we're on this section, if I can interrupt you for a second, if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
3 things that I'd like to throw in. As Phil mentioned, DJ Mormile, I work for a life insurance carrier, One America Financial. And from the life insurance carrier perspective, 3 things I really want you guys to star on this when we're talking about beneficiary forms. We always suggest that all of our policyholders, all consumers as a whole, go in and update your beneficiary forms every 3 to 5 years, either 3 to 5 years or after a major life event, whether it's a birth of a grandchild to a divorce or whatever it may be. Make sure you go in there and update as much as you can and go back and double check. There's always things you're going to forget. That's your first thing. The second thing is don't forget about contingent beneficiaries. The way contingent beneficiaries work is typically you'll have one main beneficiary on there, but then your contingent beneficiary says, if in the event that, let's say, your spouse happens to pass away at the same time that you do, where does the money go at that point? And if you want to make sure that you have that second level of beneficiaries in there, that's where the contingent comes in. And you can leave, you can have multiple contingents, whether it's a number of different kids and the foundation, however you want to do it. And then the last thing, Phil touched on this earlier, I want to reiterate again. Beneficiary forms will always trump over the will. So if you've done a great job building trusts and wills and directing that money to go exactly where it goes, but you forget to go ahead and change that beneficiary form, your money's going to go outside of the trust, outside of the will, and will follow the beneficiary form first. So this is really important stuff.
Yeah, great point. Thanks, DJ. I appreciate that. So I believe I've exited the share screen. Or am I off that, DJ?
We can see the presentation now, Phil.
Okay, great. All right. Well, let's move on to donating stock versus donating cash. Now, this is becoming more and more important, especially as we've had a very nice run in the stock market. For those of you that are invested in the market, be it through your IRA, your pension plan, your 401k, etc., the markets have had a very nice run, even as we recovered from the COVID recession. So when you're looking at donating funds, one of the things I really encourage you to look at, and of course you have the information there on the website, is donating appreciated stocks. You will get a much better tax break on it, and you will also help eliminate the capital gains, or at least mitigate the capital gains that you would have on that. That means more of your dollars are going to go to work for the charitable institution. And that versus the cash, we're all going to be donating a little bit of cash this week as the MGFA conference goes on. Those funds, are a little bit smaller, and they also don't have the power of growing, such as an equity type investment. So a lot of folks have made really good money lately. One of the things that I really want to encourage you, because we do have a little bit of a sense of urgency here. I'm sure everyone has seen on the news what we're looking at in terms of the amount of spending that the country had to do in terms of COVID, the various stimulus packages, and also the what we're looking at future spending for infrastructure. And regardless of your politics and how you view the government and the Congress and how we establish our tax rules, taxes are going to have to come into effect here. And folks like myself and DJ, we have to deal with that. Whether it comes down or not, we have to deal with it. Whether we agree with it or not, we have to deal with it. So it's our job to make sure that we know how to deal with it. So one of the things that's not being highlighted in the news a lot that will affect individual investors, because primarily when any congressman's up there, he's going to start taking swings at the higher income earners, corporations, big business, and things of that nature. But one of the things that will affect anybody's estate right now is one of the issues being considered is removing the stepped up cost basis when you pass away. So your heirs will not receive a tax break on that. So when I've got an actual client that did this back in late 2008, early 2009, he was able to scrape up about $10,000 and bought Apple Computer for $5 a share. 12 years later, here we are. His $10,000 investment is now worth, as of Friday's close, $265,000. Now, $255,000 of that is going to have to be paid in taxes. Somebody's going to have to pay it. So when you're looking at how you want to manage your estate and manage your portfolios and so forth, this is an excellent opportunity to start looking at giving appreciated stock as part of your charitable giving plan, because this is going to happen. There's only one way to pay down this debt, and I really see this coming. Let's take a look here. Now, let's go to another popular issue, as I mentioned before, and this is on the website as well. Qualified charitable distributions. This is essentially telling us that we can take our IRA, once we've reached 70 and a half, you can take distributions that are required to come out of your IRA per the IRS. There's a formula based on your life morbidity of how much you have to take out and pay taxes on. Now, some people need more deductions. Some people need less AGI. There's two ways to do this. Number one, you take your RMD, you have it directly distributed to you, then you can take all or a portion of that required minimum distribution, and you can give it to a charity. We would hope it'd be MGFA, or a portion of that be MGFA. And then you can take, the taxpayer takes the deduction. In other cases, and in the more popular cases, you take that required minimum distribution and it goes straight from your IRA, completely bypasses you, and goes straight to the charity, all or a portion of that. Now, what this does is that income, let's say it's a $25,000 required minimum distribution, that is not included in your AGI. The income is not reported, and it is moved directly over to your charitable causes, all or a portion of it. So it's all in how your taxes are fleshing out and what maybe your tax advisor will advise you to do. But however, these are in effect, and they're still in effect, and these are very effective ways to manage your charitable donations. And the charitable organization such as MGFA enjoys the benefit of this right away.
And Phil, the other idea that I love about this, kind of like what you were saying, we're able to go ahead and take a tax deduction right now on the appreciated securities, and not have that, well, not have to go ahead and pay taxes ourselves if the government's forcing us to take a required minimum distribution as it is. If we don't need that money, let's pass it off to somebody who does.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a great plan. If you have more questions on this, please go to the website. Please shoot off an email to Craig. He'll get to someone like me or one of the volunteers, and we'll walk you right through that on exactly how we can do that. Now, let's step up a little bit. These are some of the basic things we've done. Now, if you want to take things a little more, now I wouldn't say complicated, but more dynamic, you can establish what's called a donor advised fund. Now, with a lot of folks that I speak with and visit with, especially as they're putting together their estate planning and charitable donations, they say, you know, I love MGFA. I don't like MG, but I like the work that MGFA is doing. Or a loved one of mine has MG. But, you know, I'm also want to support my local church. I want to support my alma mater. I want to support, you know, my fraternity or sorority or, you know, a plethora of other things that are out there that you want to support. One of the things that you can do is you can establish a donor advised fund. We do that here at Stiefel. A lot of other financial institutions can do it, mutual fund companies and so forth. But you can make your donation, like the charitable qualified donation I just mentioned, or other donations, and these can go directly into your donor advised fund. Now, think of your donor advised fund as an interest-bearing checking account. And what you can do with that fund is that you can hold those funds. They're actively managed per the direction that you give the advisor. And what you can do is you can decide where this lump of money at your discretion, where you want it distributed to. And you pick up the immediate tax benefits of it, but it goes into this fund, and then you can spread out your donations, especially if you have better years in the market than others. And you can address a whole range of issues of where you want your charitable donations to go. You can also do what is called bunching, which is still authorized in the tax code, wherein, based on your tax situation, you can put multiple years of donations or charitable write-offs into 1 year. You can bunch those into 1 year to raise the amount of money in respect to your AGI, so you can take the maximum deductions. So by bunching, you can put all of this money into a donor advised fund and then distribute it out at a later time to the different charitable causes that you're looking for. So donor advised fund makes a lot of sense in a lot of cases. It's low cost, and it's very easy to manage. When you take a look at the advantages and things that you see on that, you know, there are low minimums. Stiefel, for example, is a $25,000 minimum. There's other mutual funds out there that do the same thing. There are no mandatory distributions. There's not any upfront cost. So it's very cost effective. You're not having to go in and do a lot of legal work and tax work to make this happen. Now, there are a few disadvantages. You need to make sure that your plan is well thought out, because this is an irrevocable gift. Once you put it in, you can't just say, I made a mistake, I'm pulling it out. So you need to make sure things are well thought out. You're also going to have an expense ratio. Just for those of you that invest in mutual funds, there's an ongoing cost to operate that fund. So you want to make sure that you've read and understand any administrative expenses that are involved in that. And there's certain things that can't be accepted in there, and that's on a case-by-case basis. So there's certain things like real property and things of that nature that you may not be able to put into a donor advised fund. But appreciated stock is a great way to do this.
Hey, Phil,
now,
quick questions. If you don't mind interrupting right here, because obviously this is a little bit more of a unique strategy that we don't hear about every single day. A lot of people may think this is just for the ultra wealthy, but I think you did a great job talking about the minimums and pricing and that sort of thing. Can you give us a little bit more information as far as how long, how much, or whatever it takes to open up one of these accounts? Is it something that we can just walk in, fill out some paperwork, kind of like we would open up any other account or a bank account to start? Or would it require some sort of spending time with an attorney or having them draw some sort of legal documents?
No. Actually, you can just come in and open one up and let the advisor know how you want to fund it, whether it's through appreciated stocks, where it's coming from another company. The one thing that you really have to think out is, where do you want this money to go? How do you want to direct the different financial or charitable organizations that you want this money to go to? So it is very simple. You just come in just like you're opening up any kind of brokerage or mutual fund account. A lot of mutual fund companies have all this online. So I recommend that you sit down and talk with someone. At my firm, for example, we have a worksheet that you could go through, on how much you would like to put in and how you want this to grow. And another point that you brought up that reminded me, DJ, is that you can also establish this as a legacy fund, wherein even after you've passed away, one of your heirs can continue to manage this in perpetuity. So if you want to give MGFA money from the grave for the next 25 years, hopefully we'll have a cure by then, but let's say for the next 25 years, this can happen automatically through a donor advised fund at a very low cost. So not a lot of attorney fees or anything with that associated. So yeah, great question. Thanks, DJ. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Okay. So let's start getting into things that are just a little more complicated. And this is where we're going to start getting DJ a little more involved. Now, one of the things that I deal with a lot, especially out here in Texas, we have in my area a lot of multi-generational ranches. And these things have been run, some of them from the 1800s, right after the Civil War, and are still operated by families. And one of the main things when we get into their planning is, number one, is we want to make sure we save the farm. We don't want the ranch going anywhere. How do we take care of this, especially if they change the step-up basis, as I mentioned earlier? And, when my great-great-grandfather came out, and bought, 700 acres for $2,000, now I have a 700-acre ranch that's producing oil and minerals and pecan farming and cattle operations and so forth. How do I protect this multi-million-dollar establishment for my next generation? And that's where we start getting into charitable remainder trust, and more importantly, wealth transfer. And this is where we can really start making sure that not only are heirs not disenfranchised, but at the same time, charitable organizations are taken care of as well. Because as I mentioned before, there is a lot of folks out there, they want to make sure that their families are taken care of, but they also believe in what their church is doing. They believe in the work that MGFA is doing and other charitable organizations. So how can we make this work to where we pay the least amount of taxes and we make sure that everyone gets taken care of? Now, one of the more popular methods that we use here, and I want to touch on this because it's a good starting point, and it's called the charitable remainder trust. And essentially, a donor transfers highly appreciated properties such as stocks, bonds, portfolios, things of that nature, into a charitable remainder trust. And then the trustee, whether it's a trust company or a family member or whoever the individual is appointed as a trustee, is going to manage that fund to produce an income stream. And that keeps the donor, so he can buy groceries and do what he needs to do with his income. And then once that the donor passes away, then the remainder of that trust goes to the charitable organization or organizations of their choice. And that is put out and taken care of. Now, what we can do, let's skip over to this, is we can take this a step further, wherein we can take a charitable remainder trust, make sure that the individual, the donors, are taken care of, the ranch is saved, or whatever. I'm in Texas, so I use ranch, but wherever you're at, you've got different things that you want to save, whether it's a multi-million-dollar ranch or it's a couple $100,000, you want to make sure that things are taken care of. I've got folks that are coming in here right now, that, myself included, I'm a brand new grandpa. So don't think for a second that new grandbaby isn't going to be taken care of after I'm gone. So, but I also want to make sure that my obligations to MGFA, which is why I'm able to sit here and visit with you today, is in place, and that operation can be taken care of. So what you can do with wealth replacement, and this is where DJ can really start kind of helping us understand, you can take that, make sure that you're paid as the donor. You'll take a portion of that income, purchase life insurance. And I know some people with MG cannot get insurance, but we have strategies wherein we can work that with families and other things. But we take that, the trustee denies that gift, and then that purchases a life insurance policy. So at the end of the day, when you pass, you've had a nice income stream to maintain your lifestyle. The charity gets whatever's left of your estate, and then the kids parachute out with a tax-free life insurance benefit. So everything's taken care of. And we want to do those type things because I wish that in the financial community, things were black and white to where we can just say, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. These plans can get complicated. And that's why people like myself and DJ, that's why we have jobs. We help you navigate this, and it doesn't have to be uber complicated. But DJ, you have something you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, this is one of those things that we talk about all the time. I know that Phil and I had a couple of cases that we've worked on recently where there were some large ranches that were, again, I'm in Texas as well, and you want to make sure that the things that you've spent your lifetime accumulating, the things that are important to you as a person, as a family, are protected across the board. And nothing hurts more than hearing stories about a family who has to sell part of something that they've owned for a very long time that was near and dear to them, or something along those lines, because they didn't go forward with some of this kind of stuff. While this is a little bit more costly to put in place, because we do have to work with an attorney to put these things in place, than something like we just talked about a few minutes ago. This is really, really powerful, and the ability to be able to pass some of that off to the family tax free, that's a huge plus as well. So yeah, I'm really glad you pointed this one out, Phil.
Okay. So now one of the things that we also talk about that we want to look when we're talking about wealth transfer, and DJ touched on this just a little bit, but there are two key things that will destroy wealth. And wealth is, that's in the owner's eyes. Some people view wealth differently than others. My job is to make sure that you and your heirs and your charitable organizations get what they need and what you want them to have. This particular strategy does that, wherein nobody's disenfranchised. But the other thing that will really destroy wealth quickly, and this is why I work with DJ so closely, is long-term care. You get into a long-term care situation, and let's say you've set up your charitable remainder trust, you've done everything you're supposed to do, and then something like MG just comes out of the blue, but in this case, maybe it's a stroke, and all of a sudden you're spending $12,000 a month in a full-scale nursing facility, which somebody has to pay for. And unless you're within the poverty ranks, that money is going to come directly out of your estate. So when we put together estate plans, we look for all of the risks to the market. And one of the biggest risks, I'm an old stock and bond guy, so I know how to manage the market and diversify out your risk and help you manage that, especially when we get the wind knocked out of us like in COVID. However, I can't control what God wants to do with your health. But I can help you protect it. I can protect your estate and how you want things to go to your charitable interest. So DJ, if you could outline some long-term care and also some products on how we can not only use the long-term care protection, but also integrate that with insurance as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Phil. So as Phil mentioned, obviously this is MG is or MGFA is very, very close to his heart because he's dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. I got into working with long-term care planning because I had a family experience with Alzheimer's, and right now we're going through another situation right now with my dad who has Parkinson's. So this is something that I'm living on a day-to-day basis, and I talk about every day on a day-to-day basis. And really, the basics behind what long-term care planning really is. This is another advanced strategy that Phil and I work with often. The idea behind it is really what we're doing is preparing the family and the finances for the impact of an extended healthcare event. There's a few different ways to do that. And typically, we're going to try to outline some of that for you quickly. If you've got a diagnosis right now of MG, we're going to go ahead and touch on that. But we also want to talk about what would happen with the family as well, because we have to protect both sides. But the short version of it, just to kind of level set across the board, let's talk a little bit about what long-term care really is, or this thing called extended healthcare really is, because a lot of people tend to think about this as a location. It's not a geographic location where you're going to spend time. Long-term care is really an event in the eyes of the medical and insurance community. And we look at it as any time that you have troubles with two of what the industry calls activities of daily living. Big word for just something that is a basic life function. Things you do in the morning when you get up. It's getting out of bed. It's eating. It's bathing. It's putting your clothes on. It's getting out of a chair. Things along those lines and moving around. If you have trouble with 2 of 6 of these ADLs that are lined out that you can talk to your financial professional about, or as in my grandmother's case or my dad's case, they can do those things, just having some troubles with it because of a cognitive impairment. So it's 2 of 6 or a cognitive impairment. That's when these policies kick in. And really, when we're the first steps of planning for this as we go forward, it doesn't really take that much more than sitting down with your family and having a discussion. Talk about, if something were to happen to me, where would I want to receive care? Who would I want to deliver that care to me? And how would we want to pay for it? Typically, there's 2 different ways to pay for it. Unfortunately, a lot of times when we talk about long-term care, our health insurance is not going to pay for it. The VA will not pay for it. Medicare won't pay for it. So we have to wind up doing one of 2 things. That's either self-funding, where we have to come out of pocket for it, which in the event We all know how this works. You pull $1 out of your wallet, you're going to be able to buy $1 worth of care with that. The other idea is you look at an investment or insurance solution, something like this right here. And this is just a shopper's guide that talks about what long-term care insurance is really all about. And the way those work is that you take the same premium, you put it in, and what you get out of that typically is going to be significantly more. All right. What this will do with an insurance-based, if I can get it on the screen here, there we go, insurance-based solution, it's going to do a few different things for you. Number one, it's going to give you additional conservative leverage on your money. That's if you can qualify for the insurance. Second of all, as Phil's mentioned a few times here, watch your taxes. Make sure that you don't get caught paying more taxes than you need to. Any benefits that come out of these policies come out completely tax-free. Doesn't matter if you've got appreciated securities in there or that we used to buy it with, you can take the money out tax-free. And then the last thing is that they also offer with these plans, a lot of these insurance-based plans, many of them offer a death benefit as well. So in the event that you never need any sort of care in the future, or you only need a little bit of care in the future, because we never know what the future is going to hold for us, we are not losing money that we put into this thing. We get a tax-free death benefit that works as an amazing asset transfer vehicle to take dollars that we own right now, transfer them to our estate, our beneficiaries, contingent beneficiaries that we talked about before, loved ones and charities as well, and that way it passes tax-free at that point. And now, when we get into talking about these insurance-based solutions, there's really three different categories of solutions. Number one, there's the traditional long-term care insurance that maybe you guys have heard about from the past. These aren't sold quite as much anymore because we're now seeing a huge emergence of either life insurance with a critical illness rider, or what we do here at One America, which are hybrid products. We've got life insurance with long-term care attached, or annuities with long-term care attached as well. And these are great ways to stretch those dollars out to get tax-free money coming in to be able to pay for care in the future. Now, I know we're kind of running out a little bit of time here. I'm going to go ahead and cut a little bit of my presentation a little bit short, but I did want to stress a few different things. We mentioned earlier, if this idea of not self-funding, if you like the idea of thinking about an insurance-based solution, you're going to want to take a look at well, first of all, definitely find a financial advisor. This is not going to be something like your auto insurance that you can just go jump online and buy real quickly right offline. You're going to want to talk to a financial advisor, somebody who understands how these insurance products work, probably somebody who understands how MG works as well, somebody like Phil, and they'll help you put those pieces together and how it fits in your entire estate. Now, in the event, and we've talked to a number of different carriers, typically, if you have generalized MG, many times you're not going to be able to get insurance. You're not going to qualify for it, unfortunately. But there may be some changes in the future with some of these carriers. They may wind up allowing it. So if you have generalized, you're still going to want to earmark those dollars for the future, still have those same conversations, but you're going to want to use a little bit more of an aggressive investment type strategy to save that money. Now, if you have ocular, many insurance carriers will look at somebody with ocular MG. My suggestion is, if that's your situation, get in touch with somebody now. Have that conversation now if you like the idea of looking at an insurance-based solution. Make sure that you have that in place now before it progresses and gets worse. And then the last thing that I want to touch on as well is, don't forget about your spouse. A lot of times people will think the healthy spouse will take care of the unhealthy spouse. Well, unfortunately, like we said earlier, everybody's health changes very quickly. And even if it was a situation of somebody staying healthy for the next 20, 30 years or whatever it may be, if they wind up having to be a caregiver, nothing will make a healthy person quicker, sicker than being a caregiver. You guys have probably seen that. So we want to make sure that we protect the family members. And by having a policy in place on that healthy spouse, the one that would qualify, would make sure that that person's protected in addition to the person that has the MG diagnosis too.
All right.
Phil,
Well, thanks.
Because I think we're kind of bumping up against the top of the hour, and I want to leave some time for questions and answers. Did I leave anything out?
No, that was great. And I do want to stress that, MG just doesn't affect the patient. It affects the entire family. And I believe there's been some presentations already during the conference that have stressed on that. So when you're doing your overall estate planning, your charitable giving and planned giving strategies, include the entire family. We just closed a case not long ago where a lady had to adjust her estate plan. She is a rancher and an owner, and we've got to prepare for the potential tax changes. But she was able to qualify for over $600,000 worth of life insurance, and there's also a $12,000 a month long-term care policy in that. So not only is her ranch going to be protected even more if she does, God forbid, have to go into a long-term care facility, that's protected. Her heirs don't have to deal with it. And if not, she has a charity, and unfortunately, it's not MG. She's dealing with some other things. However, there's going to be a charity that's going to do very, very well that she is named as a beneficiary on the life insurance portion of it. So, and DJ touched on this, and one of the reasons we talk about the wealth transfer in this presentation is because the beneficiary identifier can be so important. And you're talking about significant donations in terms of planned giving that can come just from a simple beneficiary identifier. And that's what we're here to do. And we're here to help you figure that out and navigate those waters. So at this time, I'm going to wrap up. We wanted to make sure we had plenty of time for questions. So do we have a moderator that's taking care of our questions? Jenna?
Hi there, yeah. So we'll kick things off with questions. The first one is, how long does the process take from the decision to donate stock to the actual transfer to the MGFA?
That can happen relatively quickly, as long as the stock is being held in good order. Normally, if you're using a brokerage account with a main wirehouse like a Stifel or a Merrill Lynch or a Morgan Stanley, a very simple process. These firms have things in place, and all transfers like this are also monitored by FINRA, which is the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, which will make sure that these things are done and supervised by a third party. And so you're not at the mercy of the Stifel back office or the Merrill Lynch back office or what have you. But normally we can facilitate these within a few days as long as the stock is held in good order and it's also a publicly traded stock. Now, privately held stock can be a little bit trickier, but let's say in my example earlier with the Apple, with the client that has a $265,000 gain in that, he could make that request today. I should be able to have it to MGFA by the end of the week.
Great, thank you. This next one is, if you donate a distribution, is that ongoing, or can you put a cap on how many times it gets donated?
Okay, repeat that one.
If you donate a distribution that is ongoing, can you do one that is ongoing, or can you put a cap on how many times it gets donated?
Okay, for a qualified distribution, a qualified charitable distribution, I'm assuming is what that's questions in reference to?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay. You don't have to put a cap on it. Normally on a qualified charitable distribution like that, you'll be working with your advisor or the mutual fund company or whoever the custodian is for the IRA. Now, bear in mind that qualified charitable distributions can only come from an IRA. They can't come from your 401k. RMDs aren't required in a Roth IRA, so it is a traditional IRA. What you'll want to do is contact that custodian who is ever holding those funds. And normally, in my case, there are no caps. The client tells me what they want to do. We make sure that through our legal department and qualified IRA custodial department that the individual is qualified for that distribution, and also that it's not meeting any of the Secure Act abuse policies, which means that if you're an older worker over 70 and a half that are making contributions to an IRA, you can't double dip. You can't take the deduction of your contribution and then turn around and give it to charitable organization. You'll have to do it to your prior 70 and a half contributions. So we can do an ongoing distribution, but normally it's a conversation with your advisor on how you want to do that. But we can customize it. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thanks. This next question is, what would be your recommendation as a best first step if I'm just getting started to think about plan giving, but don't know where to start?
Well, and DJ, you jump in here at any time. The first thing is visit the MG website. If you haven't already done that and looked at plan giving, I recommend you do that. Secondly, get a will. You can always modify your will and adjust your will as your situation changes. But if you're wanting to get started, talk with someone like myself or DJ or Craig or Caroline. You can look at the MG staff, and we'll help you put together a plan. We'll help you put together a way to look at how you want to do different gifting. And a lot of what you're doing, you may already have in place. And DJ can attest to that. You may have insurance policies laying around that maybe your grandmother got you when you were a teenager. You don't know until we lay everything out on the table. And so it could be something as easy as a beneficiary. Yeah, go ahead, DJ.
Yeah, you're dead on, Phil. A lot of times what we'll do is we see people, well, one of the first things I want to mention, in addition to talking to your financial advisor and your CPA or your attorney, is talk to your family as well. Those guys are going to be critical in the whole situation. You want them to know everything that's going on that you're going to be doing as you go forward for giving money away. Now, in addition to that, I kind of lost my place from a family member standpoint. So you definitely want to focus on the family first. The next part is, I lost my spot, Phil. I'm sorry.
That's fine. But basically, if you're wanting to get started, you don't know where to start at all, shoot off an email to Craig or Caroline, and he will put you in touch with me. I have resources all around me that I can pick up the phone and call. But we'll help you formulate, take a look at your situation and formulate where you'd want to go. Because plan giving is a little bit different than donating. Donating is what we're going to do this week. When we buy our ducks and our lapel pins and our T-shirts and, write a $25 check to the myasthenia desk that's virtual, that's donating. We're talking about plan giving, things that will have a significant impact. And it doesn't matter if you have $10,000 in the bank or $10 million in the bank. There is a plan situated for you.
And where I was going to go with that, sorry for the fumble there, but what I was going to say is that we can actually repurpose a lot of those old assets, whether they're cash. I know Phil's mentioned a number of times talking about appreciated stock, whether it's an IRA portfolio that you have and you've been holding it for a while because that's kind of your sacred cow, and you're thinking, I may never wind up spending through this thing. Or whether it's old annuities, life insurance, there's a lot of ways that you can take some of your old assets and repurpose them for a lot of different things in the future. So this is that. Sit down with your financial advisor and they'll walk you through everything that you need.
That's great. And this next question kind of ties in nicely. It's, do I have to have a certain level of wealth to make a planned gift, or will my planned gift still make an impact at any level?
It'll make an impact at any level. Just bear in mind that planned giving is to make an impact in your life as well as MG's life. What we're trying to do is take care of the whole picture when we're talking about planned giving, protecting your estate, protecting your heirs, and supporting the causes that you believe in. But there is no minimum. And like, I'm an MGFA volunteer. So if you notice, there's no Stiefel slides or anything out here that's pitching any particular products. But no, there isn't a high net worth that you have to have.
Great.
Hey, Jenna, I snuck ahead and I took a look at the next couple of questions, and those are kind of like landed right in my court. So I'll run with these. And it was really talking about long-term care insurance and being able to qualify. Typically, if you have a diagnosis of MG, you're gonna want to go ahead and shop around, talk to a good, solid financial advisor. I know that when Phil gets a phone call, he's going to call a number of people like myself, because different carriers will be able to handle different things based off of what we call comorbidities, a couple of things going on at once, or based off your health history, age, whatever it might be. So I don't want to say it will automatically knock you out, but generalized MG will be much more difficult to underwrite than somebody with ocular. That's just the way the insurance carriers look at it. The next question that was on the list was talking about remission. And it said, if you're in documented remission, will that help your case to be able to purchase an insurance-based solution? And the answer is yes, absolutely. So that's one of those things where you'll want to get your diagnosis. You're going to want to get your health history. Sit down with your financial advisor, explain everything to them, because the insurance carriers are going to find it when you're going through underwriting. But sit down and they will help you find somebody like Phil will find the right carrier for your specific situation.
And if I can follow up on that a little bit too, please bear in mind that I am very familiar with MG. I mean, in the hospital twice, crisis twice. And believe me, I've tried to get additional insurance, and it's a little bit difficult because of my situation. I'm in remission now, but I'm going to need to be in remission for a few more years before I can have a serious talk. But as we all know in the MG community, you tell people you have myasthenia gravis, and they think it's some kind of social order. Nobody knows what MG is unless you have MG. And myself included. I got MG in my early 50s, and I had no idea. I consider myself an educated man, but I had absolutely no idea what was happening, nor did, and I'm sure most people can relate to this as well, nor did the first 5 doctors I went to know what MG was. So very unique society that we have here, which is one of the reasons that I'm a volunteer. But I can certainly help you navigate that.
That's great. Well, Phil and DJ, thanks so much for your time and for teaching us more about planned giving. As you said, if anybody has specific questions, they can feel free to contact the MGFA. Craig Stringer is our VP of development and can definitely help direct your questions in the right way. Thank you for participating in this session. We invite everybody to leave the lobby leave the theater after this and return for our next session, which is going to be on navigating the ER with or without COVID. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, Jen. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Take care. We appreciate it.